Hello everyone, I'm Rabbi Daniel Braune-Friedman, the Director of Pastoral Care here at Charles E. Smith Life Communities. I hope everyone had a lovely Rosh Hashanah as best they could during these circumstances. We worked very hard to provide recorded services to our residents all over campus, and we had various rabbis and cantors helping us with this, in addition to our fabulous activity teams that provided the service by putting it up on our televisions and distributing materials as necessary. And we know that there are various glitches, and hopefully this is the last time we'll have to do this, but you have to realize what goes into all of these works. So thank you very much to everybody for helping out, and thank you for those that watched and for those that support us in what we do. This Shabbat, of course, is the Shabbat before Yom Kippur, known as Shabbat Shuvah. Not interestingly, Teshuvah. Shabbat Shuvah comes from the Haftorah that we always say before Yom Kippur. And on Shabbat Shuvah, it is traditional for the rabbi of the community to give a longer sermon, a much longer sermon. And in many communities, or especially in Europe, the rabbi only spoke twice a year, before Yom Kippur and before Pesach. And then shul was very different. Going to shul on Shabbat morning did not really include a sermon. It included the davening, the prayers, and the Torah reading. And the Torah reading itself was meant to inspire each of us in hearing it and understanding it to act accordingly and to understand what our responsibilities are and were. But it came time throughout the development of our narrative that we connected less and less to the ancient Hebrew in the Torah, and we needed the rabbi to give us a sermon in the language in that particular country. So we just developed, of course, first in Germany and then elsewhere, that the idea of a sermon, even the term that we clearly borrow from the Christians, is something that is now very much a part of what we are. But back then it was not. The drasha was given on these 2 days, before Yom Kippur and before Pesach. And the one before Yom Kippur is meant to stir us to get ready for Yom Kippur, perhaps reflect on the days leading up to it, the Esser Yemei Teshuvah, the 10 days of repentance, and draw us closer to Yom Kippur. So hopefully we'll get a chance on Shabbat to play a special message, a special class about with this in mind, a class meant as a drashat shuvah, a Shabbos shuvah drasha given by me. But this class is about the Parsha of Shabbat. And while it's very important to concentrate on all of these holidays, it's perhaps more important, or at least equally important, to stay with our weekly Parsha. And this week is Parshat Haazinu. In Parshat Haazinu, we hear again from Moshe, as we have throughout the rest of the book of Deuteronomy. The entire book of Deuteronomy, as we have certainly mentioned before, encompasses the final address of Moshe. Moshe has been told already that he will die in the desert, that he will not go with the Jewish people to the land of Israel. And he wants to prepare the people to lead without him, to be inspired for eternity, to have the strength and courage to go to this land, and also to know that being in the land is not a right, but rather a privilege, and a privilege built on our covenant with God. So he spends this time discussing the important mitzvot and even some new mitzvot, some new commandments that will be intertwined with our residence in this holy land. In this Parsha, Haazinu, he gives us a poem the words of the Torah in the form of a poem or a song, a shirah. And even the makeup, the construction of these words in our current scrolls are done in a unique way from the rest of the scroll of the Torah. The scroll of Haazinu is not unique because there is at least one other place in the Torah where we see it written in this form. But as you can see in this version, and of course in all versions, the top here is written in the normal form with no breaks really, no punctuation at least, and a very small break sometimes in the middle and sometimes a new paragraph, but never a break like this with this long column in the middle forming two columns with words on either side. The other place we have this, of course, is when the sea is split and the people go through the sea. But there, in that shirah, also called the shirah, placed in the middle of these two columns are words as well, whereas this is completely blank. And we understand that to mean that those words are the people of Israel going through the split sea. And we can assume that the writers of these scrolls wanted to give us almost a vision of us going through the sea, but breaking apart in order to form these columns. And here we also have these two identifying columns here. In the Parsha of Haazinu, in the words that are spoken, there are very important lines and how they are addressed. Moshe, throughout the book of Deuteronomy, gives us various places of rhetoric, outlaying what we should be like and how we should operate and how we should connect to Torah. Here he gives us the extolation of what Torah is and how important it is for our daily life. And he begins with a very important line. Haazinu hashamayim ve'adavera v'tishma ha'aretz imerfi. The Torah tells us, in Moshe's words, give ear, ye heavens, and I will speak, and let the earth hear the words of my mouth. Haazinu hashamayim ve'adavera. He is asking the heavens to hear, and very intently hear, in fact, to listen. We have two different words here for listening, Haazinu and Tishma. Haazinu has the very important word here of oznayim, your ears. Really focus, almost like we squint our eyes to see something. We almost want to squint our ears to hear. He is asking the heavens to listen intently. He also asks the ground, the earth, to hear as well. So what is the significance of talking to the lands and the sky? And we'll see earlier in Deuteronomy, or we maybe saw earlier in Deuteronomy, a similar understanding, a similar invocation of these words of Shemayim and Aretz. Ha'idotzi v'chem hayom et Shemayim v'et Aretz. Ha'chayim v'hamavet natati lefanecha. Ha'bracha v'ha'kala. U'macharti v'chayim. L'man tihya ata v'zarecha. Again, he calls upon the heaven and the earth to call witness to this day, that when he's laying out the curses and the blessings that the Israelites could receive or would receive, he also there brings us this idea of the earth and the heavens. So why the earth and why the heavens? A modern commentator called the Ever Menachai, with an anonymous author in this book called the Ever Menachai, discusses the importance of the earth and the heavens. The Iver Menachaya in the book goes all the way back to the very first pasuk, the very first verse of the Torah, where it is stated, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et aretz. We learn there that Elohim, God, creates the earth and the heavens, but the Iver Menachai takes this word Bereshit, which we play with a lot, this word Bereshit. We try to understand it differently each year. But there he takes the letters of Bereshit, which mean to create, or in the beginning, excuse me. And he says that if you work with the letters and the numerical equivalent of the letters, you can change the word Bereshit to Berit Ish. Berit Ish, covenant of fire, which he is telling us that when the Torah says in its very first verse, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et aretz, it means on a flat reading, a basic reading, our most common reading of the text, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. But if you read in this different way to form the letters, it is not in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. Rather, it is that a covenant of fire created the heaven and the earth. Or God created the heaven and the earth in accordance with this covenant of fire. And the source here, number 4, Bereshit, im mebalim et haotiyot, mekablim brit ish, ze haTorah. That this brit, this covenant of fire, is the Torah. Zshne'emar, mimenu ish dat limo. It says also in Deuteronomy, from his right, the fire of law for him. Fire is often compared with and brought parallel to the words of the Torah. When God wrote the Torah and has explained how God wrote the Torah, it says that he puts black fire on white fire. That even the ink of the Torah, the actual physical components we understand today, is black fire on white fire. And so when God created the universe, he used it within the Torah. This covenant of fire was the Torah. And so the verse actually reads, a covenant of fire did God create with the heavens and the earth. Like it says, Haazinu hashamayim v'adavera, v'tishma haaretz imrifi. Oh, hear, O heavens, I shall speak. Let the earth hear the sayings of my mouth. And so we see that the earth and the sky are the witness, and even the participants in the covenant of the Torah. In this verse as well, we see that there is a discussion of this nesher, this eagle. Kinesher your kino al gozalav v'yarcharaf v'yifrosh kanafav yikachehu yisa'ehu al evrato. As an eagle that stirreth upon her nest, hovereth over her young, spread above her wings, take them, breathe them on her pinions. This metaphor that the Torah gives here of the eagle is found in various places throughout both biblical literature and rabbinic literature. The idea of the eagle is saving the little bird from harm, is taking her out of her little nest so that she can be brought to the proper nest or can be saved in some way. Rabbi Menachem Leibtag, a famous rabbi and scholar of Tanakh, notes that the eagle specifically is giving help to the bird who has difficulty flying. It is lifting up literally the bird and helping him fly on his way. The metaphor being that there are times when there is so much burden that the Jewish people have. Burdens to be the target of anti-Semitism, burden to be the pursuance of truth and justice, and even the burdens of doing all of these things that God wants them to do. They need help. So the eagle, God, lifts them up to help them through this time. Continuing on now with the Parsha. Lule ka'as oyev, agur pen yinakru, sameru pen yomer yadenu, rama below Adonai pa'al kol zot. Were it not that I dreaded enemies' provocation, lest their adversaries should misdeem, lest they should say, our hand is exalted, and not God hath wrought all of this. So there are times when, although the Israelites deserve punishment, deserve to be taken by their captors, they deserve that, says at least this understanding, because Israel has not fulfilled their promise and their pledge to keep God's covenant and therefore be given the land. So when people try to take the land from us, God protects us from them in order so that other nations shouldn't say that we have deserved this punishment, even though we do. So it's a very complicated relationship because God loves us, and although we may deserve punishment, God continues to shine his favor upon us. And this is, of course, the ongoing saga of the Tanakh, of the Jewish Bible. God threatens that he will no longer protect us if we continue to do, which is often a great sin, of idolatry. He warns us of this, and despite his warning, we continue to commit idolatry. We are then faced by a warring army, and it would seem that we are met with the possible justice that God will stop protecting us, and we will be taken over by enemies. But in many cases in the Tanakh, we are not. Of course, further down the line, we will have our own reign in the land of Israel, our own land of our reign in the city of Jerusalem. And we will build 2 great temples. Both will be destroyed in their proper time, taken by other enemies. And we talk about these destructions every Yom Kippur, every Tisha B'Av. And each Tisha B'Av, we return to this idea that God did actually punish us for our sins. So all the more so, that understanding reminds us that despite all of the times when we were warned and God did it anyway, there was a time that God felt that we were due that punishment. And this is not to say that every time there is a great punishment, every time there is an international or local tragedy or Jewish tragedy, that there is some that is deserved in some way. This is merely the Torah, merely what is written, not always an assignment for what should happen. But it does point out that which is important, that idol worship and other ways we go away from God, however that means for us individually, going away from God is not good. And he may no longer punish us, as they may no longer work, or there may be a more evolved morality, that God does not kill us, that God does not punish us by allowing our enemies to take us over. Rather, God has allowed this morality to develop further, and there is no longer that justice. But the Torah does seem to understands that although there will be many times, when we will be helped, it seems to be that in later years, God does not continue to help us, that God allows our enemies to overtake us. But the majority of the time, it says this verse, will be that God will want to protect us, lest other people think that the Jewish people have gone away from God. But let's understand this point a little more. God punishing us. Something that is deep in every mind of a Jew, and really everyone else in this world. Seeing God and understanding God in his love, his compassion, and his greatness, How can that God that is great and compassionate bring tragedy in this world? And there really are no great answers. There's nothing that will say why God has to destroy and why God brings this, despite his love, despite his compassion, despite his greatness. Because some could say maybe he's not as great. Maybe he can't stop these things. That's an answer. An answer I don't accept, because I do believe God is in control of all, including my stutter there. And also, maybe some would say God is not all that compassionate, but I don't believe that either. The Torah tells me that God is compassionate and God does love. And despite all of that, all these things happen. So we're not going to explain that yet. But what I do think is fascinating is that there are sources that understand that God cries with us. God gets sad with us. God goes through pain, maybe even illness in a sense, in a way, with us. In the book of Exodus, when God is taking us out of Egypt, after the sin of the golden calf, after the time when Moshe went up the mountain, and when he was there for what the Israelites thought was too long, the people brought a golden calf to worship in Moshe's place, or somehow fulfilling God's word, some would say, but in the wrong way, or trying to fulfill, but in the wrong way. They brought the golden calf. And when God sought to destroy them, he also felt some guilt in doing so. Lama Yomer Mitzrim Lemor Bara Hotziam Beharogotam Beharim Ulecholotam Al Panei Adama Shu Becharapecha V'Hinachem Al Hara Le'amecha. When we went out, the Egyptians might say, God brought them out only to kill them? So God did not want other people to think that God was bad. God was worried what everyone in the world would think of God if he slew the Israelites, even though perhaps he had some cause. Instead, V'Hinachem Adonai al hara asher diber lasot imamo. And God repented of the evil from which he said he would do unto his people. Further on in the book of Numbers, V'hamatza et ha'am hazeh ish echad v'yamru hagoyim asher shamu et shimacha lemor ibliti yicholet Adonai lahavi et ha'am hazeh al ha'eretz asher nishba lehem v'yishchatem b'midbar v'yom Adonai salachti kevrecha. In the book of Numbers, when we were concerned that we would not be able to go into the land immediately. We were worried about our enemies that were there, and we did another sin of sending spies. And hearing the negative report of the spies that would go into this land, and they brought back a negative report. Our mourning of their report, God also saw as a sin, and God again thought that he should punish us. And in fact did punish us by not allowing us in that generation to enter the land of Israel, and basically gave the Israelites at that point a life sentence to stay in the desert until they died, or at least most of them. And even when he wanted to punish them, says this verse, he left them to die in the desert, but even so, he says that he pardoned them according to his word. That although he allows them to die in the desert, God still has this need to punish them. God does care, and God does get angry, but God does also want to be responsive and connected to us. And we see this again very fittingly on Tisha B'Av. Even when these temples were destroyed, and when God takes responsibility, and in fact says he does this because of a lack of sin, God weeps with us, says the Midrash. It says in Isaiah, B'chol taratam lo tsar umalach panav hoshi'am b'ahavato v'chemlatohu ga'olam v'yitalem v'nisha'im al yemei olam. In all their affliction, he, God, was afflicted, and the angel of his presence saved them. In his love and in his pity he redeemed them. He bore them and carried them all the days of old, of the whole world. We see in this final piece today that when God punishes us, God also feels that pain, and God also takes that with him. So we in our lives, we make mistakes, and we act to people based on the mistakes that they make to us. And it is human nature to mistake, and it is divine to forgive, as we often say. But more than that, more than just the chance for someone to realize that we have wronged them, when we take action against them, we should have pity as we do that. We should understand that we are wrong in how we react. If God who is in complete control and who has complete justice, is able to moderate, or at least be honest about his feelings in punishing us, if God can do that, then we should be able to do it as well on some level. The way we act when others wrong us should also come from a teaching from God. That God, who responds to our sins through not only punishment, but through emotion and through caring about us, we should act to others even when they're wrong. When they're wrong, they do something to us, and we scold them, or we instruct them otherwise, or we tell them that they're wrong, we should do as God does. Do it with kindness, do it with emotion, do it with a desire to continue connecting. And so as we march forward to Yom Kippur, these words of Haazinu give us great lessons. And so therefore we end with a very important point as we go to Yom Kippur, the value of not only forgiveness, but also how we act when others wrong us. Perhaps we cannot wait for others to ask for forgiveness. We should, in many cases, tell people when they have wronged us. But even before that ask or plea for forgiveness comes, there is an element of how we act to them should be godlike. And therefore, if we need to protect ourselves, to be guarded against their mistreatment of us, we do so in a way that understands that they have done what is wrong. They have erred, and they have been human. And we should treat them with a desire to stay connected with that person, at least as much as they were before, and to try to see where they're coming from. Rather than snap in judgment, snap with a response, draw back and see how we have benefited from that relationship, what their relationship is, and to attempt to keep that connection, even if it is damaged in some way. I wish you all Gemar Chatima Tova. May this be a year sealed with goodness, a year sealed with connection and forgiveness, not only of God to us as humans, but as humans towards each other. Goodbye for now.